No woman should be authorized to stay at home to bring up her children. Society should be totally different. Women should not have that choice, precisely because if there is such a choice, too many women will make that one. Simone de Beauvoir, French philosopher, second-wave feminist icon, and feminist author. Hi virtual friends and fellow bigots. Welcome to Alilandia. Today we're talking about women having it all and female empowerment. Remember, this is a small channel and it really does help me if you interact in some way. If you subscribe or like the video or leave a comment on what your thoughts are, I would really appreciate it. Without further ado, let's get into things. Despite of the progress of the women's liberation movement and the feminist movement overall, women are still not happy. We're still not happy, guys. By all metrics and polls, what's up with that, guys? What's up with that? We're not getting happier, we're just getting more medicated. Women are twice as likely as men to be diagnosed with depression. We also take twice the amount of antidepressants than men, at least middle-aged women do. Survey after survey shows that though women as a group have greater responsibility and want greater responsibility in the workplace and are achieving it, women's anxiety about financial security has grown to levels greater than their male counterparts. Frankly, I think a big part of this is what we are told growing up, what we're being taught to want. What we are being taught is the most important and fulfilling thing in life. The empowerment movement is essentially giving us tools to achieve things we wouldn't necessarily want if it had not been taught to us, I think. Feminism didn't just change the Western understanding of sex and gender roles. How Suzanne Banker puts it, it changed the very meaning of life. She says, quote, "It took the spotlight of the things that matter, love, family, and a sense of place, and put it where it doesn't belong, on money, power, and status. It altered who we are as a people." Isn't it true that a woman who is successful in a career, making a lot of money, maybe not married, will be seen societally as more successful than a woman who chose to forego a career and dedicate her time to a family? Isn't it true that as a society, we give a lot more recognition to celebrities and athletes and CEOs than to parents? Haven't many women who are stay-at-home moms been met with judgmental looks when someone asks them what they do and they answer honestly that they raise their own children? It is a fact that men and women are different. This simple sentence is true, but yet in our day it could be riddled with controversy. It is also true that we chemically react differently to diverse situations, where women might find pleasure and have their hormone levels replenished with oxytocin. Men might find boredom and even stress. I think if you think of shopping, most will agree with this. Most. According to John Gray, the author of Venus on Fire, Mars on Ice, yes, I read this book, guys. Very interesting, honestly. A book where he mostly examines hormonal differences between men and women and how we cope differently with different situations. There's recent studies that have shown that women release a hormone called oxytocin to cope with stress. Oxytocin for women is released in nurturing environments and supportive situations. Think of small childcare or cooking with your children, etc. Gardening, or what I like to do at home, like home projects, organizing photo albums. Testosterone, on the other hand, is more of an emergency hormone. It gets released in competitive environments, problem solving. So imagine men and women working in high stress, competitive, cutthroat environments in the corporate world. Women also get testosterone in those situations. It can be like an adrenaline rush, a drug. I'm making general statements. I know, not all. I should probably add here and clarify. Men need testosterone to cope with stress, but stressful situations do not build their testosterone. But men do not get oxytocin the same way women do. Men, on the other hand, need to rebuild their testosterone to cope with stress, to cope with these competitive environments. They do not do it in the way that women do it. They do it, think of the cave in which men go into after work. It's not a situation that men are doing this against women. It's just the situation that is. Does empowering women mean telling them that these spaces will be the most rewarding and fulfilling? I think not. And I think not, at least for the majority of us. Evaluate what you might have felt when I said that women thrive in more nurturing environments, like home, like situations with children, etc. If you felt that that was demeaning or less valuable, you have to evaluate where you got that idea. Why is one thing more valuable than the other? Remember The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, ladies. Do you know the poem? The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, published in 1865 by William Ross Wallace. You convinced me. I'll read it a little bit. Blessings on the hand of a woman. Angels guard her strength and grace. In the cottage palace hovel, oh, no matter where the place. Would that never storm assailed it, rainbows ever gently curled. For the hand that rocks the cradle is the hand that rules the world. Now, of course, this poem is a relic, and not all women are meant to be mothers, and not all women will be mothers. We know this. Even in traditional societies, not all women were supposed to be mothers. But we're also not in a position where this role is really valued either. Honestly, not even by men who claim they want traditional women. Many of them do not hesitate to remind women that they built the world. Even those who haven't built anything. Even those who haven't built anything, and their ancestry or ancestors haven't either. But that's beside the point. It is petty competition, and it is also measuring worth on a masculine scale. Okay? That means what men can do, women are not supposed to do exact. Nature didn't intend us to be able to do the same thing. We're supposed to complement each other. So again, petty competition. Extremes of the radical feminists and the radical people in the manosphere space. I'm talking about the radical people, not, the mainstream ones, the ones that are the most popular. Those guys. And the radical feminists. They both kind of trample on the real power of femininity. They both really dismiss it. Women now spend 50% less time with their children than they did 5 decades ago. And what do we have to show for it? So, according to Kate O'Byrne, her last name, I don't know how to pronounce it, who was the president of National Review Institute and author, she said, quote, by every available measure, including school achievement and the incidence of delinquency, depression, sexual promiscuity, suicide, and substance abuse, the well-being of American children has declined in recent decades. The job women do as mothers will have repercussions for generations, unlike most careers. And even the women who cannot have children or find that that path is not for them can in fact find a path that is useful for traditional society. How Rebecca Merkel put it beautifully in her book, Even Exile, God did not create women to lounge around in picturesque poses, occasionally embroidering a handkerchief. But the feminist is who I really have a quarrel with, not the manosphere. At least not right now. I will get to that. Or maybe I already have. We'll see. In this video, I have a quarrel with the feminists. They essentially wanted women to be more like men. Yes, they might not have said this out loud, but they really did. They wanted men to strip themselves of what makes them men, and women to take their place. That's the unspoken mantra of feminism. Men, even though we want to be just like you must change. There's this idea that if women take positions of power, they'll just be better. They'll just be better, kinder, and more fair. Key, of course, is positions of power. Women do not want to take the positions of men at the bottom of the barrel. But I digress. I mean, feminists criticized men for their promiscuous nature and then turned around and told women that to be happy, they must embrace a sort of sexual liberation. And let's just not touch on the hookup culture, as I spoke about that in another video. And again, with this idea that we heard for years, that if women were more in positions of power, workplaces would be better, they would be safer and more fair. Did that happen though? No, it did not. Even leftist media will acknowledge this. From an article titled, "Girl Boss Has Left the Building." For the girl boss theory of the universe to cohere, women have to be inherently good and moral creatures, or at least inherently better than men. She goes on, "Women are still people, which means we can respond in similar ways to the incentives and privileges of power that sometimes make male bosses tyrants or harassers or wealth hoarders. Slotting mostly white women into the power structures, usually occupied by men, does not de facto change workplaces, let alone the world, for the better, if the structures themselves go untouched." Of course, in the article, she had to bring race into this and make white women the enemy. Like, you were doing so well, mate. Maybe she was afraid she would sound like too much of a conservative. So, would black women having power, suddenly we would have the girl boss paradise? Or in this article, she discusses how many of the women we dubbed girl bosses or girl boss actually were later accused of sinister practices. She writes, quote, "Over time, accusations of sinister labor practices among prominent businesswomen who fit the girl boss template became more common. The confident, hardworking, camera-ready young woman of a publicist's dreams apparently had an evil twin, a woman, pedigreed and usually white, who was not only as accomplished as her male counterparts, but just as cruel and demanding too." Was it maybe because she was white? Just wondering. She goes on, "When a country is grappling with mass death, racist state violence, and the unemployment and potential homelessness of millions of people, it becomes inescapably clear that when women center their worldview around their own office hustle, it just recreates the power structures built by men, but with women conveniently on top." I agree with part of that. Now, men are not on top, but women are. Are things suddenly better? No. Some examples. The CEO of the luggage brand Away apparently got locked in a power struggle with her company because she allegedly had some tyrannical management practices. Then there's Audrey Gelbman, the founder of the women-only co-working space, The Wing. She resigned because of an uproar over low pay and poor treatment of workers. And then there's Mickey Arrowal, sorry if I'm not saying your name correctly, apparently you suck. The founder of Things Underwear was forced to leave the company over claims of sexual harassment. I'm sorry. So, are we done pretending that women are just better at everything? That we're better at being bosses and entrepreneurs? That we are morally superior? Are we done pretending that that is the best part of us? The whole boss babe era? Maybe not quite yet. You will never hear me say that women should not be allowed to do something. That we should not be allowed to work. That we should not be allowed to own property. That's just silly. And it honestly a very simplistic view of the world, and a very modern outlook of the past, because many people think the past was simply this black and white. No. And this goes for both the left and the right. People on the left seem to think that everyone was just beating their wives in the past. No, that's not how it was. But we are taking 2 steps forward and 2 steps backward, but in a slightly different direction. I don't think history is a straight line in terms of progress. I think there have been better times in some aspects, in worse times in some aspects. I also think a little bit that we are living in dark ages, unable to remember our past, completely struck with amnesia. But yet here we are, we can recognize that something is amiss, and it is okay to say that women enjoy certain things that feminists deemed less, but are not less. Many feminist icons were the pariah of society, but at some point they became the cool kids and forced their vision on everyone else, through academia, media, etc. Do you think we're finally waking up? If you have any suggestions for future videos, please let me know below. And as always, cheers and goodbye.